Welcome back into the Rowdy Studio. I'm Stephen Levine. This is Tom Vandervoort here to talk Pure Michigan 400. Boom. What is that?
The Hendrick engine's blowing up.
3 of them. 3 Hendrick engines let go, including Jimmie Johnson's, who was in position to win this race. Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, Jimmie Johnson all ended up behind the wall.
Not so good if you're Hendrick Motorsports, and obviously you have to go back and you have to figure out what happened. You're tempted to say, sitting here right now, was something common, right, to these engines? And if it was in the design, was it a parts failure in the design somehow? Were they pushing something? But I still say the glass is half full for these guys.
They were fast.
They were fast, man. They were fast on this intermediate track, and you're going to go to Atlanta, and I guarantee you Jimmie Johnson's going to be fast, and you're going to roll on into the chase with Casey Kane, Jimmie Johnson Jr. all looking fast. If you can get Jeff Gordon there.
Well, Jeff Gordon is the one guy of the 3 that this really hurt, because he did lose some ground to Ryan Newman in the wild card chase.
Win a race.
Points-wise, yeah. Win a race and you don't have to worry about it. But I'm not terribly worried about Hendrick Motorsports anyway. It's not like we're talking about Joe Gibbs Racing, who has ongoing quality assurance issues.
Meaning?
Hendrick Motorsports does not have a reputation for engine failures. I think it was an anomaly. I think we're going to be fine.
You got to figure out what happened.
You do have to figure out what happened. I'm sure
you got to magnaflux all those parts.
You got to do what to them?
Magnaflux.
You can't say that on a Rowdy video.
I just said it.
Wow. All right. Well, let's move on to issue number 2, which has to be Greg Biffle and his win at Michigan. I think obviously Roush Fenway heard me call them out, heard me say Michigan is no longer a Ford track, and they responded in kind.
Well, obviously you were wrong, right?
No, I motivated them to step up their game.
That's how you cover for the fact that you said it wasn't a Ford track anymore, and Biffle goes out and wins the race. This was very important for Greg Biffle and Roush Fenway Racing because, in my opinion, they had not looked as good in the last month and a half as I had earlier in the season. I think that goes for Biffle and Kenseth, especially, even though they're right up there in the points because they haven't had a bunch of terrible finishes. To me, they just hadn't shown the speed. And now you see Greg Biffle come up, obviously taking a little bit of advantage of what happened to Jimmie, but held off a very fast Brad Keselowski, who you said would be a factor, and I think will be a factor in this championship now.
Absolutely.
So I think it's important, very important, that Greg Biffle won this race.
It would have been even more important if Carl Edwards had won this race instead of finishing 6th. Matt Kenseth finished 17th. So I'm not exactly...
The next two weeks, that's it for Carl Edwards.
Yeah, Bristol.
Bristol, he can win, and Atlanta, he can win.
Right,
but you know, I'm not putting my money on it.
There's another Ford driver who could win at Bristol, and he now has 2 top 5s in a row. That's Marcus Ambrose. If he keeps putting himself in the top 5, eventually he's going to be in position to win a race. Now, he doesn't have eventually until the chase starts.
I think it's Bristol. For Marcus Ambrose, it's Bristol. That's it.
I think you're probably right. All right, let's move on to issue number 3, which are a couple of Hendrick teammates who may not be sitting together at the team lunch table today. Jeff Gordon, Dale Earnhardt Jr. Jeff Gordon was not happy with the 88 at Michigan.
Well, he felt like Jr. kind of ran up the racetrack on him and cut him off, and that he had to get out of the gas to keep from wrecking Jr., and so he felt that there was a little too much taking, especially from a teammate. And I think what you see here is, you know, we've seen Jeff Gordon obviously is a very competitive individual. And frustration is going to be a part of his life as long as he's sitting, whatever he's sitting in the points. You know, Jeff Gordon has gotten into it with Jimmie Johnson.
16th.
Now he's gotten into it with Dale Jr. And these things they're not
major.
Crazy. They don't have to be huge, but I think you see the frustration.
Well, and on the other side of that,
you can't blame Jeff Gordon for being frustrated. He might not make the chase. And on the other side is Dale Jr.
Dale Jr., who's been atop the points this season, who's had fast race cars, who's broken
for the first time
broken a winless streak,
right?
And he ain't necessarily going to defer to Jeff Gordon.
No.
Not that he ever would, but he can smell victory. He can smell a championship in the air, and he's going for it, man. He isn't giving way to Jeff Gordon.
That's right. Now, obviously, you know, you can push it a little too far at times, but Dale Jr. has had a frustrating career at Hendrick Motorsports. This is the time when he finally has race cars that can win him races and, more importantly, a championship. And he's prepared to go out and try to take it. So that's a formula for some frustration between Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnfield Jr.
Now, that's been your big 3, but I do feel like we have to mention that gnarly wreck that Mark Martin sustained when he hit the butt of the infield pit wall there. Reminds us that while NASCAR is as safe as it's ever been, it might be a stretch to call it safe.
It's not safe and never will be 100% safe. Like, you know, many sports, there's an element of risk, and certainly the element of risk when you're going 200 miles an hour is pretty high. We remember the wreck at Las Vegas. Jeff Gordon hit a butt end of an interior wall. They did something about that. We remember the wreck at Pocono. Elliott Sadler had a very scary wreck there. They made changes with respect to that, and they'll do the same thing here. I think, obviously, these openings into the garage area inside the racetrack are something you could look at writ large across NASCAR and make sure we don't have any more vulnerable spots.
We don't blame NASCAR. I don't blame the racetrack.
No.
This was a freak accident, but it told us here's another area we have to examine.
And NASCAR stepped up big time after 2001. And I think they'll continue to keep their eye on the ball here, and they have to. It's always, you can always improve it. It's a moving target. You can always do better, and they will.
Well, this has been your bonus edition of the Rowdy Big Three since we had 4 big issues. Woo! It's your Rowdy Big Four. For Tom Vandervoort, I'm Stephen Levine. Thanks so much for watching.